Hey guys, Dr. Greg here with today's episode of the Daily Dose of Dr. Greg, and I'm just going to say right off the bat, I have no idea what's going to be talked about in today's episode. However, what I do know is we have a live studio audience today, and it is some of the people that are most close to me and this team, and I'm pretty excited. With me today is none other than my sister from another mister, or whatever you want to call her. So Jen has been a part of our family here for over 2 years, right?
Yep.
And Jen is really one of the main reasons why we have the impact that we do. Jen is highly operational. I am not. I'm a visionary, and Jen's gift is to come in and take the ideas and put them into action. And Jen's really the reason why this show is happening. And Jen's the reason why people get to hear about what we do literally all around the world. So as we were talking about topics and things to talk about on the show, one of the things we said is people want to know more about you, Dr. Greg, and what drives you and what quirks do you have and what makes you unique. So Jen said, ooh, we call that a roast. So I guess that's what we're up to today. So Jen,
Yes.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Wow, what an introduction. And yes, I am going to roast you a little bit today, so I'm excited. And yes, you have not received any of these questions. Are you ready?
What if I say
ready?
no?
We're going to do it anyway.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so I'll be easy on you at first. So what would be your superpower?
My superpower is, again, never having access to any of these. I have the ability to start almost anything. I love having an idea or allowing myself to sit in something and then have this question of, if there were no rules and money wasn't the object and it couldn't fail, what would it look like? And have this idea. And I think respectfully over time I've tried to shun that superpower because you have all these ideas and if you can't do anything with them, you're kind of like, what do I do with this? And then I think through, just God's favor on this, He surrounds me with people like yourself that are like, hey, that's a good idea, or tell me more about that one, and then we realize it's not a good idea, and then we take the good ideas and we run with them. So I like formulating ideas.
So that's your superpower.
I'm not sure what letter that would put on my cape as like this, but...
Speaking of cape,
Uh-oh.
who would win in a fight between Batman and Superman?
I'm never be a superhero guy. Batman or Superman. The man would win.
The man.
I would say Superman, just because I know more about him and I like Superman. I think.
I agree. Superman.
Good.
Do you guys agree? Superman?
Superman?
No.
Yeah.
Batman.
No. Oh.
Tasha says Batman.
Tasha in the audience says no.
All right. Tell me, what's the most unexpected piece of advice you've ever received?
Most unexpected.
Yes.
I've gone through some crazy sauce in my life, some tough things. And I would say in several of those, someone's saying to me, this will be the best thing that's ever happened to you. So I guess we're just going to be raw here, right? So my wife and I went through a bankruptcy probably 15 years ago. And it was funny because not funny, but in retrospect, you look back on things and you're like, holy cow. But our attorney said, how you guys doing? To Rach and I. And we're like, really good, actually. She's like, okay, because here's what typically happens in these. You get torn apart or you're brought together. So I think that was a good thing. So yeah, I think this concept of this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to you in the midst of chaos or a tough time. Because then you have the opportunity at that point to look for why it could be the best thing that's happened to you. Like this is happening to me, which gives that victim mentality bent versus this is happening for me. And like in that situation, I got myself there. I'm not going to blame it on anybody. So then what do I learn from that? And sometimes I call it the dark night of the soul. Sometimes you have to get to a place to where only at that state of physiology can you learn something. So yeah, this is the best thing that's ever happened. This will be the best thing that's ever happened to you.
Nice. Good answer.
All right. Can I ask you a question?
What?
Never mind.
All right. So I'm going to switch gears. So you have talked about your rodeo days.
Oh my gosh.
So many people don't know that you were on the rodeo circuit. So tell us a little bit about maybe the most exciting thing that happened or what that looked like for you on the rodeo circuit.
Okay, so to clarify,
yes,
I never got on the back of a bucking horse. I never rode a bull. However, growing up, my mom and dad both grew up on large ranches in North Dakota. And I remember as a little boy being at my Uncle Jimmy's ranch, and I put a pair of spurs on my boots, and I thought, I'm the coolest guy in the world. And I wanted to be a rodeo star. I wanted to be a calf roper because these guys are super athletic. Their horses are super athletic. And it is like this amazing thing to watch. And I was actually in a couple of horse shows as a kid. And those were super fun. And my uncle allowed us to be those. Well, so fast forward into chiropractic school. And so one of my degrees, some people don't even know this, is a chiropractor. And my best friend, when I was going to chiropractic school, was a college bull rider. Actually, bull rider, saddle bronc, and bareback rider. And I was going to chiropractic school, and we were in like this how to become a good chiropractor class, right? And you're supposed to how to treat injuries. And the reality is no one was injured. So I remember talking, and his name's Cody, right? Perfect name for a cowboy athlete. All right. So I was like, he's like, Greg, how's school going? And I'm like, it's okay. He's like, what do you mean it's okay? Well, we're in this injury class, but no one's injured. And I remember Cody saying, you want to see injuries? Yeah. Come travel the rodeo circuit with us. So, okay, now I'm graduated, so you can't come back and sue me. So for 2 years at the end of my chiropractic education, I traveled the college rodeo circuit with my friend from North Dakota, and I literally put a chiropractic table in the back of a horse trailer because I didn't want to have someone come hey, can I see your license? And I treated almost all of the cowboys and cowgirls on the Dickinson State High School rodeo team. And at the same time, Cody's wife, Kathy, was a barrel racer. And she's like, can you adjust my horse? And I was like, no, but I'm curious to learn how.
Yeah. So
then I did some informal education on how to work on horses. And it was actually, we were back in North Dakota at a branding. And the branding in North Dakota is an amazing thing. But anyway, they had this amazing horse. It was the ranch favorite horse. The kids could literally swing from this mare's tail. That's how dead broke she was. But they were roping with her, and they actually, she went over backwards in a roping pen and hit the back of her head on a drill stem, a big piece of metal. And she went crazy. They couldn't even she turned into a crazy horse. So we were at this branding of all these cowboys and cowgirls from North Dakota, and they're like, "Hey, Greg, how's school going?" Da 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 da. And Kathy's like, "And he knows how to work on horses now." And all of a sudden, they're like, you could see the family that had that mare all look at each other, and they're like, "Really?" So they had to actually go and rope this horse in the pasture. They literally drug her back to where we're doing this work, and I adjusted this horse.
And what happened?
She crapped the biggest load of poop ever. But if you think about it, her system was so ramped that she and essentially you could just see her whole nervous system just.
Yeah.
So I adjusted in the person would be the base of the skull.
Yeah.
And back to the old horse.
Nice.
So they're like, whoa. Okay. So then what happened? So then I started working on horses. That were part of the rodeo circuit as well. And we got to do some cool things inside of that. So then fast forward, Cody's done with college. And now I start traveling with the PRCA, the Professional Rodeo Circuit. So they have a group called the Justin Healers, which is the emergency room doctors. So if someone gets stepped on inside the rodeo arena, these guys go out there and they're the ones that put them on the spine boards. So I sat behind the chutes. Anyway, and I had a chiropractic table up. So I would just work on anyone that wanted to. We would work on them. And for the most part, cowboys are my kind of people. I vividly remember, so going back to your question, I vividly remember an athlete, I don't remember where in the world we were, mostly in Minnesota. And he had got stepped on by a bull the week before. And he came to me in these just most authentic look. And he said, "Doc, if I don't cover that next bull," and cover means ride him for 8 seconds, "I can't make my farm payment." And I was like, "I got you. I got you." And
they make it.
He made it.
Nice.
And
nice.
So yeah, right. So anyway, so that would be just the ability to take care, because for the most part, rodeo athletes are ranchers, and it's something that they love to do, and that really just got me tied in with that community and got me to use my gifts. So yeah, the rodeo circuit was really fun. And I would be amiss if I didn't say this because, yes, I wore skin-tight Wrangler jeans and a cowboy hat and cowboy boots and the whole shooting match because you got to look the part.
Okay, so talking about taking the biggest dump, explain to us how Drop-A-Deuce actually works.
How does it work? Okay, so one of the...
Okay, first tell us how you named it.
Well,
for those that don't know, you named some of these supplements.
Yeah. I'm pretty witty at times. So, okay. Well, one summer I worked on a camp for disabled kids. And by the way, that was one of the most pivotal times in my life, is working with people that had physical disabilities and realizing that what truly is a disability. And there was a gentleman there from Australia. And he said one day, I got a Donnie at the gates. And I was like, you got a what, where? He's like, I got a Donnie at the gates. And I was like, you have to explain. And he said, you yank, I gotta poop. And I was like, oh, that's good. I'm going to use that one. So we have little kids, right? So like if the kids have to go to the bathroom, you say, do you have to go number 1 or number 2?
Yeah.
Right. So if it's number 2, that means you have to poop.
Yeah.
So 2 is a deuce. And then we would use the term like drop the kids off at the pool. So that's another term that we would use, but I didn't think that was appropriate for a supplement bottle. So drop a deuce is slang for take a poop. And respectfully, how the product Drop a Deuce works is on several factors, from a standpoint of insoluble fiber to some components inside of it that help move things through the bowels itself and stimulate the large intestine. It's not a laxative. Why we have that as a product, though, maybe more importantly, is that pooping is like clutch to the journey. If you're not pooping, you're not going to get healthy. If you're not pooping and we try to kill something, it will just raise holy havoc inside the body. So hence Drop a Deuce is in our
I will
arsenal.
say it makes it quite comical when you have to call in your order. And there's
I'd like a Drop a Deuce.
a little and every time when I've called in the past, there's a little old lady on the other end and she'll ask me to repeat it. And then there's this huge laugh behind it.
It's kind of like The Simpsons, like when they ask for like someone goofy, like, I want to drop a deuce.
Yeah.
You're
Yes.
like, you want good. I'm glad that you want to drop a deuce.
All right. Favorite book of all time?
Well, I love to read. Though the book that I circle back to continuously is the Bible. I mean, it's just this. There's a ton of stories. There's a ton of parables. One of my favorite things to do is just gain wisdom, right? So like Proverbs, every single day, there's just these nuggets. And actually, when I was in high school and I played basketball, what I would do every single night before the game when I put my game bag together is I would go through Proverbs and I'd find a nugget. And I'd write it on a sheet of paper and I would put it in my own gym bag. So the first thing that I looked at when I opened up my bag was this concept around wisdom, upon discipline. And, I think the concern for a lot of people is they're like, oh, it's an old book. It's no longer relevant. And the reality is it's just as relevant today as it was 2,000, 3,000 years ago. Outside of that, I would say that the book Wooden is the biography about John Wooden. I mean, I get chills when I think about his character. And I mean, think about this, like in the 1970s, right? We're talking like long hair and big lapels. And he had people like that would come in, and he told Bill Walton, like, if you don't cut your hair, you're not on my team. Like surfer guy from California. He taught the young men how to put their socks on. These are the top Division I college athletes in the world. And he's like, let me teach you how to put your socks on. Now, there were Chuck Taylor shoes back then. I get that. Yet, what I love is we don't skip the steps. I also love that he was in a world of fame, in a world of notoriety. He was so grounded, even to the end, even into his mid 90s when he passed away. Even the house that he lived in. I mean, he could do whatever he wanted, and just his wisdom and his discipline inside of that. I mean, you talked about those guys that were coached by him, and they're like biggest influence of my life by a long shot. And then, but circling back, strong Christian man, and had these values and these morals and these ethics that guided him. And anytime, do you know that he was actually supposed to be a coach for Minnesota Gophers? Yeah.
No.
So he had an offer for Minnesota, and it was actually due to a blizzard, and the phone lines were down, that Minnesota was unable to give him a phone call and offer him the job.
Wow.
And he was ready to take it.
Wasn't meant to be.
And then he got a call from UCLA.
Yeah.
And then Minnesota came back to him and he said, I have given my word to UCLA. I am going to honor my word. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. Yeah, I've often looked at his pyramid of success.
Yes.
It's really, really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of, so would you say that that's the biggest impact, that book had the biggest impact on your life?
From a book standpoint?
Yeah.
No. Probably 7 years ago, I hired a guy named Jason Selk to be my coach. Jason Selk at the time was the mindfulness coach of the St. Louis Cardinals during the time that they won 2 World Series. And when he got brought into the Cardinals, Tony La Russa was the skipper, and La Russa was vehemently against this guy. They're like, dude, mindset, like seriously. He was, and I can't use the words because you told me I can't swear on the podcast, but it was not good. And what Selk has this book called Executive Toughness, and he had me read the book, and there's an exercise in the book. And the exercise, we talk a lot about future self in this clinic. We talk about who do you want to become and then act like it. So he had this exercise where I wrote out a day in my life 5 years in advance. Everything from, he's like, if I close my eyes, Greg, I better be able to take myself there. I better be able to see what you see, smell what you smell, touch what you touch, taste what you taste. And I did that. And it came true. So what that taught me is that the mind is profoundly powerful, and that if it's congruent ethically and morally, that it is, there's no reason why it can't come true. So I think that book, Executive Toughness, was a big turning point for me. Like I can even close my eyes and remember myself listening to it as I was mowing my lawn in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I have a very visual memory, but that was clutch for me because I then realized that the mind is more than likely the most untapped potential that we have in our health journey, or any journey for that matter.
Yeah, talk about self-sabotage, right?
No doubt.
So you can self-sabotage with your mind when you're going through a journey. Why don't you talk about that? Because we have a lot of people that get to that 6-month mark, and it's really tough. Right?
Yeah. So for those of you that, just to allude to the journey, so we take our patients on a journey, and the journey is not a short journey. And 6 months is not even halfway through the first leg of the journey. Holy cow, that sounds like a long time. Well, the reality is most of these people have been ill for a very long time before they find us. And I actually had a conversation. I'm starting to have more conversations with our patients on our initial evals about, I tell them so a portion of your state of being right now from a health standpoint is due to infection, toxicity, autoimmunity, and a portion of your state of dis-ease right now is due to mental, emotional, spiritual unwellness. And they'll ask them, in your opinion, with what you've got going on, what % falls into each bucket? And I will tell you that most people will say 50-50. So that's why people that have tried this supplement protocol or this diet doesn't work. Because what they haven't done is come back in and said, I'm going to deal with my stuff, like we call it, right? I'm going to deal with my stuff along the way. And I think that's what happens is 6 months, because we do a really good job of the clinical part, eat this, don't eat that, take this, cut that one out. And then 6 months, and then they get to the obstacle. They get to that place where they don't have to, they get to deal with that other part of it, that mental, emotional component. And what they've taught themselves is, this is how it's worked in the past. This is how I've always done it. And in some cases, and someday I'll write this book, we get to a place and we're so used to being in the state that we're in that we don't even know what it looks like to live a life of vitality, of wellness, of freedom. So we get close to the edge and we've told the whole world, I want to jump off the edge. But we get to the edge and we're like,
no, I'm comfortable.
I don't know that I really want to jump off the edge because I know how my spouse responds to me in this state of being. I know how my kids respond to me, my coworkers, my family. And even though it is chaos, I will acknowledge that I'm actually at a heart level scared, fearful of who will they see me if I take the leap.
Yep.
And people stay. People stay where they are. So that's my whole
It's more comfortable.
poopy diaper syndrome conversation, right? Like we walk around in poopy pants, knowing that they're poopy pants, but also not sure of what life would look like if we don't do that. So that's the reality of it. And even I'm a fan of Ryan Holiday. He wrote the book, The Obstacle is the Way. So what happens is people find ways around this.
Yep.
And we even ask our clients, what is your MO? How do we know that you're at a place where you're up against something? Because, by the way, we've all been up against something. What do you do? Do you become that person that overanalyzes and now your team or your clinician's an idiot? Do you go rogue? All of a sudden we lose you. Like, where the hell Jen go?
Yeah.
Right? Or do you so we all have that. And I think if we acknowledge that, then our team is like, remember we talked about this? And by the way, this is happening. And then they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Because the obstacle is the way. So when people deal with their stuff, and our team talks about, like, you can tell who has dealt with their stuff because they're different people. They treat us differently. They treat themselves differently. And that's where transformation comes. This is not there. By the way, there is no magic supplement on that shelf out there. There is no easy button. It's you got to be all in.
Agree. 100%. All right. Okay. Within Vitae, if you were going to be in any other role, what would it be? I think I know the answer.
I'd want to ship the supplements. I love boxing the supplements. And I say that because I come from a retail background. And there's, like, for example, like farming, I loved being in the tractor and going up and down the field because I could kind of turn my brain off and I could know that I'm getting stuff done. So, nothing against Aaron, who is the rock star in that area, though. Like, there's times where I just love going back there and putting boxes and supplements.
I thought you were going to say the camera and video.
Oh yeah, I do love that part too.
Yeah.
However, the other part that I love about that room is I know that every single one of those boxes is going to go to somebody that has a hope for a better future. And respectfully, I have, a small prayer and a thought for that person. And I used to remember I used to write little notes on the box when I would send stuff out because I truly want it to be a different fit and feel for what we do.
You also put the label on perfectly.
Is there any other way to put the label on?
And the tape perfectly.
Do you remember that one time when Aaron put the labels on upside down just to mess with me?
Do you remember when I first started with you? And
now comes the roast, by the way.
Now get this. So
just so you know, I did everything all by myself.
He did
everything before Jen joined, and I'm a little bit OCD. By the way, you want a doctor that's a little bit OCD. Maybe not a boss though.
I remember the day that he gave me permission to take over doing the shipping part, but then it was under this watchful eye of the tape had to be on the box perfectly, and the box had to, like, you had to squish it and tape it, and you had to put the right amount of paper inside of it and then squish it again. It had to match all up. Yep, perfect. But then there was a day when he also let me start putting supplements on the shelf. Because we had 3 shelves and they were all perfect. And he actually would have this, it wasn't a ruler. It was a clipboard. And so you would put the supplements on the shelf and he would take his clipboard and he'd stick it right down so it was all lined up perfectly. And then if I did them 3 rows versus 2 rows, I would come in the next day and it would be completely changed. And then I'd hear about it.
I'm getting better. I think part of why, and I'm not trying to like validate myself though, I think number one, you want a doctor that's OCD because we pay attention to things. Though also, we talk so much about the experience here, right? We talk about that we're not your everyday mom and pop shop. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in the room right now that are all a part of what we are and what we do. And who comes and finds us has typically had a poor experience in multiple other places. I had a phone call yesterday where the lady was like, so she was frustrated about some of the things, and then I just started asking questions. And what I realized is that she had bad experiences elsewhere. And now it doesn't maybe validate me like taking my clipboard and perfectly lining up supplements, though attention to detail. And I have a pretty substantial retail background. I worked for a shoe company in high school. I worked for a big sporting company in college. I sold computers in grad school, so I really do like retail. It's fun.
okay.
And I really love electronics. Like,
Yeah, we know.
Like, I have a few dollars of electronic devices.
All right. Tell us maybe a little bit about all the things that you want to have, but
My wish list?
yeah, your wish list, but like it keeps getting shot down.
Yeah. Well, I love gadgets. I love things. I mean, so when we talk about things clinically, like I remember when I was first envisioning this practice, I actually wanted a ice tub. Like I wanted this like tub that literally had like 33-degree water in it, because the research on cold plunging is amazing. So that would be one. Obviously, do I really want a bunch of people in their swimsuits in our clinic anymore?
You pushed hard for that.
I know.
Really hard.
Yeah.
Even the placement of it, how it was going to, we're going to run classes around it. We're going to hire somebody to actually run the class and pump
Cheer
you
people
up.
on. Because could you imagine 2 minutes up to your neck in freezing cold water?
Yeah.
Like it's going to take some encouragement. So not happening. The second thing would be hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And I say that because I've had 6 chambers in my life and we've had, several thousand hours. What we're learning is, so Craig Groeschel's newest book, Lead Like It Matters. In his book, he says, chase one rabbit, you catch it. Chase multiple rabbits, you catch none. And I think what we're learning is, I would confidently say that we are, if not the best in the world, we are top 5 hands down at taking people on a health journey that has high touch, high personalized components to it. And we treat people around the world. And the lion's share of our patients never set foot in this practice. So that's what we're amazing at. So I would say that. And then the last thing would be a Hocket. Which is this device that you have, like all of these like PEMF and all of these amazing things that happen inside of your system. So there's so many people in here that the door is like shaking, isn't it?
I can't hear it in the audio.
Oh, okay. Well, so then it is what it is. So Tasha doesn't have to hold the door closed. She can just do her jam. So though, what I've also learned, and this is just me, this is just my, and maybe this can resonate with some of the listeners. When you are not sure that what you're doing will work 100% in some cases, and I know that what we do works, but many times people like to add to it, right? Like, what other gadgets do you have at home that will help you get better faster? When the reality is, wait, what about doubling down on dealing with your stuff, or staying
Focusing
hydrated?
on your water, yeah.
Get hydrated. How often are you pooping? But we forget about those things, and we're like, oh, I need a fill in the blank. I need an Oura ring. I need a smartwatch. I need something to quantify everything. No, you need to go back to the basics and you need to double down on the basics is really what that's taught me through that.
Okay, last question. The most interesting person you've ever met?
That's a good question.
Aren't all of them good questions?
Before I moved to Hawaii, I went to a functional medicine seminar in Nebraska, and there was an optometrist there who had served our country in World War II. And I learned more about the eyes and how we use the eyes as a tool in 30 minutes with this 95-year-old man that was still at a functional medicine seminar, mind you.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness. Like for example, he put these, they looked like sunglasses, but they had just pinholes in them. And he proved that if you looked through something through a pinhole, you could focus something so much closer to your eye than if you just did it with your bare eye. He also talked about how glasses are like a tool. He's like, why do you use a fork when you eat dinner? It makes it easier. Yeah, exactly why we would put glasses on, to give our eyes a break. Oh, that's interesting. He also talked about convergence and why prisms, when used properly, are amazing. What got me though was a 95-year-old guy that went to optometry school on the GI Bill from serving our country in World War II.
That's cool.
So what really got me, Jen, was the fire in his belly. And what he stated, and I'm not in the optometry world, but his passion for what he talked about, I was like, how do I how do my people benefit from what you're doing? So I love those conversations. I didn't plan on it. And God only knows how we had this conversation together, though I have learned to also be open to those and then to acknowledge them. Like holy Toledo, that was the most cool
It is really cool.
conversation ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all you have?
That's it.
I totally thought I was going to get roasted today.
Well, yeah, I was being nice.
Okay. Maybe we'll do more roasting. Maybe we'll go back and forth. So anyway, closing thoughts for you, Jen?
I would say, I think just in general, people hopefully understand like how much you care about people in general. You care about their health. You care about who they are. You care about the journey that they've already been on. Because I think what we've noticed is that on average, people have been to about 6 other doctors before they ever come to you. And it feels like kind of that we're their last hope. And so when they do get to meet with you, you have this genuine quality about you that just really cares to that deeper level. So
I do.
Yeah.
I really do care. I've said this many times, and you remember seeing it on my whiteboard, right? We create epic family reunions, and we're going to have one of those this winter. My brother's getting married out in Montana this winter, and the plans don't have, because, so for example, I'm my mom and dad's doctor. I run labs with my mom and dad once or twice a year. They follow my protocols.
And your whole family.
And actually my whole family. Yeah. Which, that says a lot.
And my family.
And your family. Right. But we're not making any exceptions so my parents are 74. Mom takes one medication, though they're going to come skiing. They're going to go snowmobiling. We're going to go dog sledding. That's what I envision for people. And what I see on a day-to-day basis is people that can't do what they want. And I hate that. There's too many Jobs walking around. There's too many people that are bearing things that I don't think are necessary. And I think why I'm so determined, Jen, is I know that I have way too many college credits. I have a belief in a creator. Our body's designed to heal, right? My favorite verse is John 10:10. I come to give you life and life to the fullest. And then but before that it says that the thief comes to rob, kill, and destroy. And I think that those things together, right, are so. I think what we do is we provide that the tools and the team to get a person to their potential. And that's what I think the passion that I have is that we have the team, that we have the process, that we have the journey for people. And I love talking to people. I love getting to know people. I love Jen. So Jen's office is literally one wall away from mine. And Jen's like, dude, you get fired up a lot. we need some like soundproofing inside of your office. And
we need to move them down here.
Yeah. Which would be fine because what I give people is the biggest dose of vitamin H they've had in sometimes decades, right? Vitamin H is hope. And that's powerful. And they need that. And that's what we give for them. So
it's good.
So fun chat, Jen. This is pretty good. So
thanks.
All right. So for listeners, you guys get to know a little bit more about Dr. Greg. And thank you, Jen, for being here. And thank you for what you do. Because you take my crazy thoughts and put them into action and orchestrate a team around it. So pretty grateful for that. So if you're listening and you saw value in this episode, wherever you listen, leave us a 5-star review. We are going to give away my top vitamin D product to a 5-star review, DV3. I've used it as my sole source of vitamin D in my clinic for now over 8 years, and we love it. So leave us a review. Also, share this with others. I mean, we truly exist to give people a good conversation, to give them knowledge, understanding that is unbiased. And we strive to be the go-to source for all things health. So Jen, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll probably do more of these as the journey goes. And so we appreciate that. So there you guys have it. Stay tuned for our next episode.